Welcome to the What's Our Verdict podcast. We fashion ourselves cinematic judge and jury. My name is JJ Crowder. I'm here with my co-hosts Mattson and JJ.
Better red than dead.
And Alec Burgess.
Let's get it.
We appreciate you tuning in. Go ahead and hit that follow, subscribe, like, bell notification buttons. Tell a friend about us. Tell a family member about us. Tell a very bunch of brutal soldiers about us. How about that? Or a dairy farmer. You can tell them about us too. I think that's it. That's all I got. Maybe a movie theater owner. How about that one? Go there. YouTube won't like me if I say the other word I was going to tell you, and we don't want them watching our show anyway. So
I was going to say, JJ, I can't do what I want to do. You know what I want to do.
No, so. You cannot.
I picked this movie specifically for him to do that, JJ.
Yeah, I know. Well, he can do it at the end of the beginning. He missed out on the beginning, but he can do it after we're done with the episode, and it'll be a Patreon exclusive. Mattson saying that shit again. But what was it you always said, Alec? Like the
National Socialist.
National Socialist. There you go. That's weird. Don't tell any of them about us. With that, we're in week 3 of original screenplays. And what would a month of original screenplays be without at least one Quentin Tarantino film? So let's talk about Inglourious Basterds. It was released August 21st, 2009. It was written and directed by Quentin Tarantino. Stars Brad Pitt, Eli Roth, Melanie Laurent, Diane Kruger, Christoph Waltz, Michael Fassbender, Til Schweiger, Daniel Bruhl, and Gideon Burkhardt. It is about Nazi-occupied France during World War II. A plan to assassinate Nazi leaders by a group of Jewish U.S. soldiers coincides with a theater owner's vengeful plans for the same. Yeah.
Nazi.
If Alec hadn't put this on the podcast, I would have the list because Alec, your movie, you go, my friend, and then I will talk.
I'm a Tarantino fan, so I like the way he writes his stories. Right, he takes a point in time that did exist, and then he changes it to fit the story he wants to tell of what could have happened.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that's in many ways like almost as original as you can get with today's movie, I guess is the best way to put it, because you need a scene or a backdrop that people are going to relate to and recognize. You need to draw them into the theater for them making the money, so you pick a time frame where that'll work, and then he just breaks every single rule of cinema after that to tell the story he wants to tell. And he is completely unapologetic about it.
That's fair.
Yeah, so I love Tarantino because he just kind of does. He chooses a historical backdrop and then just does whatever he wants within that story. This is one of my favorites because I do love World War II history in that kind of time frame. And the team he assembled for this is bar none amazing. Christoph Waltz is phenomenal. And, then you just throw in Brad Pitt as Aldo the Apache. And those two playing kind of antagonists to each other, completely opposites that are both brilliant in their own way. Like it just comes together very, very nicely and well done. And I enjoy this movie quite a bit.
Yeah.
That's why I picked it. And I wanted to give Mattson something to look forward to. I've been kind of mean to him the last 7 or 8 years.
That's funny. Was this his first time? And I don't know. I'd have to go back and look. So Quentin Tarantino's kind of hit and miss with me, but I do enjoy this one. But was this the first time that he kind of took his history, like actual written history, and like revamped it in an utterly insane way? Because what happens to Hitler obviously didn't happen, but was this the first time? Because I'm trying to think of what else. I don't think Reservoir Dogs. I know Pulp Fiction, but he's obviously done it since then. Because Once Upon a Time in Hollywood did the same thing. It was in the same vein, and then, but
Yeah, nothing else. This was the first one, kind of, because Kill Bill didn't really do it either.
No.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, this one was interesting, and again, Quentin Tarantino is hit and miss. Like, I think early on, like, he was one of my favorites. Like, I love Pulp Fiction's great, and I'm not a vignette kind of guy, but like that one works for me, the way it twists and turns and then brings it all back at the end. But then I really liked Reservoir Dogs as well. I will say that like he lost me on some of like the middle shit, like when he did the one where Robert Rodriguez, the double feature one where I don't remember the one he did, but anyway, I didn't love that one. But this one, when this one came out, like I was kind of hesitant to go see it because I was like, he hasn't done much that I've been excited about since Pulp Fiction. But this one just hit different. Like, and I'll say this has one of the greatest openings in my opinion. Like that opening scene on the farm and like with Christoph Waltz just like being an utter horrifying human being. Like, because he's just so calm and nice and polite. And then there's that moment when he switches and he's telling this guy, we've had this entire conversation so that you have no mistake that I know that you're hiding people in your floorboards. Like, and his face changes. Like, there's a look in his eye. And I was like, oh shit, we just watched greatness. And then, like, at the end, he shouts, au revoir, shot. Like, the guy's fucked up in the best possible way for a movie like this. Like, and that set the tone. And I've got some criticisms that we'll talk about, but that I was like, I'm going to like this movie for that first 30 minutes, regardless of the rest of it. And then there's some other great parts too, but like, geez, that opening scene is insane.
The other scene that I didn't expect is when he strangles the movie actress. I didn't think he was just going to outright like go for it right there. Like, whoa, okay. Like you knew immediately, like when they said they're Italian was like, just like, okay. And grazie. I'm like, oh, yeah. Whoa, you're dead. Like how, yeah, you're gone.
Yeah.
Gorlami.
That's yes. And to your point, like, yeah, that's one thing about Tarantino that I like, especially in this movie. Like there is no boundaries. Like he'll do whatever. And again, to your point, like to tell the story he wants to tell, like he'll do whatever, including killing off a lot of like big characters. That
yeah,
you're
like Fassbender died.
What?
Like you're like, what? Because for me, I'd never seen this movie all the way through. I realized as I watched it, I was like, oh my gosh, I'd seen enough of it, but I hadn't seen all the way through. And there's a couple times like, I can't believe they just died. Like that's a very well-known actress or actor. Like they're gone. Okay, well, all right. I guess no one's safe from dying in this movie potentially. The only thing that got me, and I knew halfway through, like I was like, I don't think this scene is in this movie. I think is it in Valkyrie with the Hitler scene where he freaks out, that whole speech, that monologue. Where he's like, 999. He's like, and he's like freaking out.
The one that they meme on all the different, like,
yeah, that
they make it about everything. That's actually that's not Valkyrie either, I don't think. I'm trying to remember what movie
I need to go watch that movie just so I can appreciate that again. I wanted that to be in this movie because to me, that was the only thing I was like, I needed some crazy Hitler scene. Like I needed him to like just lose his marbles. I think they missed out on that, to be honest. I feel like that would have fit really well in this movie and could have been awesome. But they never gave me that. And I really wanted that, like really, really, really bad. Besides that, the like opening scene, awesome. Acting is awesome. Things are satirical and over the top. The thing with Tarantino movies that get me sometimes is the pace. Like I have to like you gotta take the good and the bad with that. Like I know going in, I'm like, okay, like it's gonna be dialogue heavy. Thankfully, the dialogue is usually supreme, but at times it's still like it can take a little bit of its toll on you. Where like another director could give you dialogue, but supplement it with a little bit more eye-catchy action that like helps you through it. But that's not Tarantino's. And like, I'm not here to say doesn't need to do that, but I think at times this is the type of movie like do I want to go watch Inglourious Basterds tomorrow or 2 weeks from now or a month from now? Yeah, like probably not. But when I do rewatch it again, there's great scenes. It's interesting. It's funny at times, and I'll like be like, "Oh man, that's a great movie." But it does give me as a viewer some fatigue at times. But I don't think it's a great movie.
Yeah, I think one of my biggest gripes with Tarantino in general is he gets bloated in some of it, like because it's so dialogue heavy. 2.5 hours is longer than this movie needs to be, and I've always said 2 hours is the sweet spot for me most of the time, as long as it's entertaining and interesting. But like even this one, I think 2 hours and 15 minutes probably could have been okay. I think there's an argument for a 2 hour version of this movie, but I think 2 hours and 15 makes a lot of sense because there is a lot of dialogue in this one specifically, even more so than I think a lot of his others that are very pertinent. And I think the dialogue is very interesting in this movie, especially like that bar scene. First of all, the scene before it where Fassbender and Pitt are having it in a bar or in a basement, like that whole back and forth about where he says in a basement like 6 times, like makes me laugh because this is going to be a shit show because they spend so much time leading into it with the basement argument. The instant you walk down there and there's all these German soldiers and you could just see they're like, God damn it. And so like, it's just great. But I think that's one thing. And even this one suffers a little bit from I call it the Tarantino bloat. Because the one thing about him is he's going to do whatever the fuck he wants. He's going to make his movie, which I respect. But sometimes he gets a little.
It's like sometimes he doesn't know when to let it go. Because like the bar scene was intriguing, but then they play the game, and it's like, man, maybe you could have ended like 4 minutes sooner than that because you still drove it home with a really clever, witty, catchy dialogue. But do you always just go one step too far? Like the opening scene. Was it long? Sure, but that to me set up what that character was and how he was so smart. You knew he was going to catch people like that needed it, but like the Nazi officer, like, hey, like sure, but do I care about him as much as I care as some of these other people know? And I think that's just where maybe like someone that told Tarantino no, which nobody exists that's going to do that with his film. But if he had someone that could like do that in his corner, saving him from himself. That's all I would say. But at the same time, I mean, what a great bar scene. Was pretty wild.
Yeah.
I followed why he did that, even though I don't really like it so much. But it's all leading up to that stupid 3 joke, right? With
Yeah.
And so I get where you was going, but yeah, it's too much because you can do that much quicker.
Yeah.
And so the extra dialogue, right? Like I could have done less with Gary Goebbels and the Frederick Zoller, right? But give me 2.5 hours of Christoph Waltz talking, and explaining his processes, because he could go on a 5-10 minute monologue, and it's the most enrapturing part of the film.
Oh yeah.
Versus, you have all this extra going in that you're like, you mentioned it, the Tarantino bloat, where it's like, okay, you could have sped this up a bit, but I know why you did it, but you didn't have to, right? You're now well known enough. Just go ahead and get to the point.
Yeah. Yeah. One, he was relatively unknown at this point too, wasn't he? I mean, at least in American circles. Like, he's been around in Germany for a long time, but I don't think. Yeah, because he did pretty sure he did a German version of the Orient Express. Which is weird, but yeah, anyway, like he was relatively unknown, but I could watch anything that he's in. Christoph Waltz, sign me up. Like I'll watch it just to watch him. And that opening scene started, but then I don't know, it's tough too, because the one that really got me the most in this was Brad Pitt. Like when he first pops up in that second act, like scene as freaking Aldo Rain, like that whole speech to the soldiers, like the debit part, like Casey. Okay, so Casey had never seen this movie, and she's not a Tarantino fan, but like she watched until she fell asleep about halfway through, which I was like, hey, that says something too. But like we're watching this, and when he's like, you take on debit, and she's like, did he did he just say debit instead of debt? I'm like, yep. She goes, why does that make so much sense for this character? I'm like, because it works. Like the whole, like, but seeing Brad Pitt as that character, like, I just love, like, it's just another testament to him, like, where it's kind of a chameleon. Like, he can be pretty much any character, but like, I love him as this character too. Like, his speech every time this might be my masterpiece. Like, and like the whole, are you gonna take that Nazi uniform off? Like, there is those two for me, just absolute scene stealers. Like, this movie would not be good without Christoph Waltz and Brad Pitt in it. Like, it would be manageable, but it wouldn't be good. Like, I want to watch those two idiots go on a road trip together. Like, dude, just the sheer beauty of the dialogue with those two, and then for them to be, and it's kind of an interesting thing because you watch both of them have these solitary scenes where they're just absolutely acting the shit out of it, and then when they finally get to come together at the end during the negotiation scene or whatever, like, so good, just so good. Well, I don't need him. I'm gonna get my ass chewed at first.
I've been chewed out before.
I've been chewed out before. I might get chewed out, but I've been chewed out before. Yeah, like, I love it. The dynamic between those two. There's a reason Tarantino keeps pulling two of them up since this too, because they're great in his movies. But I don't know. And this is another one that's like, it's just so original. Like, because it shocked me the first time I watched it. It, like, the whole movie theater scene, like when they just start murking everybody and like they make Swiss cheese out of Hitler. I'm like, whoa, what is going on right now? Like, I was like,
I don't remember that in 8th grade history.
Wait, what? I was like, that's not how that worked. I was like, and I guess nobody really knows. And so, at least not that they've told everybody in public. So it's like, it could be anything that happened to him. You know what I mean? But at the same time, it's just like, that's an interesting way to play this whole thing out. And like, but that was another one that I was just like, okay, didn't see that coming, but that was great. But I do love the ridiculousness of the whole movie theater thing too, like with the Italian accents and like try to, like, it just is, you could tell without Fassbender, they're just so fucked, and it's just so great. But because they just like, I don't care, we're gonna do it anyway.
Yeah, we'll make it work.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
No, I mean, the movie is so over the top because in real life, if you knew you spoke that little Italian, you're not doing that. Never, not ever.
Yeah.
Because if the actress, whatever if she'd be like, well, speak a little Italian to me, and that's how she'd be like, no. And her cast, like, what did they cast her in a heel? Like what? Like, what was that about?
So ridiculous. And I swear that's a Tarantino shot at Hollywood. Like, that's him.
Anything
like,
with feet.
Yeah. him in Hollywood. And like, the fact that somebody would be vain enough to have them cast with their heel on, like, could see him doing that too. Just because then, they're not limping down the thing. They're walking because it's the same height. It's just, I don't know. Tarantino's a prick that way. Like, there's a reason he does everything. You just have to figure it out. But yeah, I'm with you. Like, that's a wild scene, but it's still funny as hell too. Like, I think that's the part that I love the most about it, is like, it's so ridiculous and yet I love it. And normally I'm like, come on. And there's a part of me that's like, that's just not going to happen, to Mattson's point. But I laugh my ass off when they're just like, and they're being all serious too. Like, but he can't. It's just great. It's great.
Yeah.
I did like that they kind of mixed a little bit of the ridiculous audacity with some of the common sense. Like, you have the one guy when they're discussing who speaks the most Italian. It's like, and Donnie, you speak third best. And it's like, I don't speak Italian. And so, like, that's exactly what Mattson was kind of saying. Like, no, we don't speak Italian. But then you just have the audacity, the just out there kind of brazenness where it's like, yeah, that's what I said, third best. Just keep your mouth shut, and we'll make it through okay.
Yeah.
But you have a nice little mix thrown in there of that common sense, to where like, okay, yeah, that like this isn't gonna work, but then he just immediately squashes it with, yeah, just shut up and it'll be fine. Like nobody asked for your opinion.
Yeah. It's great.
One thing that I appreciate watching this is I too, like Alec and maybe like a lot of people, I love World War II history, and I've watched a lot of stuff over the past, like in 2024, about documenters of World War II with Churchill and Hitler, and especially Hitler's inner circle. So in this movie, when it calls out like Goering and Goebbels and I should remember a couple of the other people's names. But they all like kind of looked like them. And I was like, oh man, it felt more realistic. I know who these people are. I know why Goebbels would care about this film being so well received and like having the approval from Hitler and like caring so much about where this premieres, because he literally did care about all that stuff very deeply, and they all were looking for ways to impress Hitler. So it was like, as brazen and weird as this sounds, like, this would have been like a real, like, feasible thing that could have gone on. Tarantino just obviously ramped up the satire, but I was like, yeah, it's probably what happened. Probably they probably did have some like promotional movie premiere, and yeah, having a super soldier that literally couldn't miss, and two bullets to the kneecaps, one to the chest, and like unlimited ammo, killed like 60 British and American soldiers, like no problem. Like, oh yeah, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, the serious propaganda machine that was churning out at that time from that side. Yeah, I appreciate that too. And the fact that, like, I love the scene too where they are introducing the bastards from the other side, and like cut into that almost what you're looking for, where the Hitler character 999 like, and he's telling them, no, we're gonna keep this quiet. And then he's like, send in the fact that we're not even gonna call him the Bear Chew anymore. Like, and then like they bring him in, and like I like that scene of like how it's played, of Hitler trying to mitigate the problems that this squad is causing. Like, and you're not to tell anyone that that's what happened.
I just wanted to freak out more. Like, I thought that was perfectly teed up, because what we know about Hitler, he had a temper. I was like, man, he could have just blown a gasket right here. It was everything you just said. It was funny and clever. I was like, I would have taken 2 more minutes of explosive dialogue.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. That's one of the funniest memes. Like, when people make videos of that clip that you're talking about, like about the million different things that Hitler could be screaming and yelling about, like he does in that movie. And I wish it was Valkyrie.
What movie is that from? Because that scene, I mean, is meme like lore. Like, you can put almost anything superimposed on that, and it's funny.
Oh yeah, I'm pretty sure I've seen ones about Ohio State football on there. Like, I mean, it's like you can literally plug in anything, and it's funny. I don't know what movie. I'll have to look it up. We'll have to do.
I gotta look that up too, because I wanted that to be in this, but yeah. I mean, this is a fun and odd, but I was gonna say, like, man, you want to make a movie, just put Nazis in it, like, as your villain. Like, it's hard not to go right, because it's a universal hate. Like, you don't even have to explain it. It's just there, and then you can also just make fun of them. And it's perfect. I give you more. That's why I love Indiana Jones, because when they don't have them in there, it's not as funny. That's why number 2 was fine, but it could have been better. Put some Nazis in there. They were looking for that treasure too. Come on.
Yeah. It's a movie called Downfall.
I gotta watch it, because I don't even think I've seen it.
German film, but it's called
2004 Downfall.
Yeah, and it talks a little bit about how that became like
2 hours and 30 minutes. Ugh.
That's 2 hours and 30 minutes of German cinema.
Yeah.
So translated, that's a 6-hour American film.
You think so?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, when you got to read the dialogue the whole fucking time, it sure the fuck is. Um,
Man, it's got good reviews though. 94% from 50,000 plus popcornometer and 90% from the critics.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah, I've never seen it either, but we know, everybody knows me in subtitles. That's a rough deal for me, but
So that is something, because there's a lot of German in this movie.
yes.
How do you handle the subtitles with it, JJ?
I got really frustrated at the first time I watched it, like, because it starts in French and there's a lot of French, a lot of German, and then some really shitty Italian. But like, it's one of those things where I got really frustrated at first because it was all in French, but then I was like, okay, I get it, and I think it's smart that he did it because it fits what you're doing. But I mean, I'll always get frustrated when I have to read it. Like, I always laugh because I'm like, some movies, like, people get pissed when they're like, well, it's, why wasn't this movie in English? And at the same time, I'm like, because it didn't take place in England, like, or in America or in England or somewhere that's English speaking. Why would they speak English in Germany occupied France? Like, it's just, they're not going to, for the most part, except for, I'm going to switch to English because I'm assuming that these people laying in the floorboards don't speak it. When he made that statement, what a filthy fucking, for the fact that I haven't heard anybody means to me that they don't speak English. I'm like, oh, you are a nasty son of a bitch. And you are, to me, that was the instance where, like, I love the whole rat speech. Like, I get that. That was clever too and smart. But like, when he says that line of, I'm assuming they don't speak English because I haven't heard anything. So I'm going to switch back to French, keep up my charade. I'm like, that's when I really fell in love with that character being super intelligent. I was like, damn. So, I mean, I dealt with it. And I think partially because in this case, it really adds to it in theory. But I always get annoyed when I have to read, like, because I have a harder time processing everything all at the same time when I'm reading. I'm so focused on reading that I'm missing, like, the visuals. And I know it's a me problem, but
Yeah, it's not that hard.
it is for me. Like, I struggle. My attention span can only go so far. But yeah, it's manageable. I do get annoyed at some. I also get annoyed in the bar because that scene's almost entirely
in
German. And so I'm like, ugh, can we move along here?
But that part I can get more behind because I get at the beginning intention kind of why they did that, as you just talked about. It kind of showed, just added to that character. I can get behind that. But the bar sim, like, look, you've transitioned back to English. Like, we know that they're speaking a different language, but where this is also an English movie, like, that's when I start to get annoyed with a little bit of that.
Yeah.
Because the fact that you got to go back and show, oh, they can speak multiple languages. Like, I already know that. Like, it's okay. I don't need that layer. But again, that's a Tarantino thing, just saying, like, screw you, I'm going to do what I want.
Yeah. But that scene also doesn't work quite as well if they're not speaking German because it's the accent that got them. So it's like, but I don't know. Like, I understand why, but I just, for me, it's a personal thing. To me, it doesn't detract from the film at all, except for me, because I just don't like it. You know what I mean? Like, I just get annoyed by it, but that's a personal preference for sure. I think the middle part of this movie, from about halfway into the bar scene to the ending, when they pull Aldo Rain out and they start the negotiation, up until that point, between the middle of the bar scene and that, like, I kind of lose a little bit interest. Like, that part takes too long for me in those. And I think a lot of it has to do with the bar scene, but I also think the lead up into the cinema scene, and then the cinema, the playing out of everything that's going on in the movie theater takes a little too long as well. Like, the whole Daniel Bruhl, like, the guy, like, having the crush on Shoshana.
Yeah, I never cared about that.
Like, that just goes way too, like, it's typical Tarantino bloat. Like, it was just, I get why, because in his mind that completes the story and keeps you on track. But you could have kept me on track without 20 minutes of that. Like, I really believe that. And so it's like, that's where I get frustrated. But then the end picks back up again. And then I'm like, okay, we can, because you got Brad Pitt and with Christoph Waltz having this, like, and like when when he freaks out like a little kid, like that's one of the most genius moments in this entire movie. He's like, "Ooh, exciting!" Like that whole fucking part. I giggle, I laughed so hard because I was like, that fits this character. He's like this serious, intelligent, smart, and he's so not worried about any of this that he just like has this goofy kid moment that's like, it's like a movie, you know what I mean? Like I just love that whole aspect of it, but there's a slog in the middle where I'm like, okay, let's move along to the good part. And I felt that way in the theater. I remember watching it the first time going, this is Tarantino right here. We got too much going on of shit that I don't care about. And most of that doesn't truly add value to the story. I think that's my biggest problem with the whole bar scene as a whole, is once you get past, once it goes into like, they bring out that the other, like the major comes out and he's like, I'm like, you lost me. Like I just was like, and then it just keeps dragging on and on. And to me, like you get the beginning and that whole sequence up to the point where he switches back to French sets the scene for what the whole movie's about and this whole character. And then at the end, like the dialogues make sense, but in the middle, like there was no value add to me other than thinning the herd and setting up the silly Italian scene. These guys continuing the plan for the bar. Like the bar doesn't truly add value to the movie for me. Most of it anyway. Like I laugh at the first part of it, but then it just goes on and on and on. And I'm like, ugh. And then like the whole introduction part of the movie theater when they're being ridiculous with the Italian accents, that too. Like it just, I'm like, okay, find a way to cut a bunch of that. And I think this may be a perfect movie because it's just so entertaining. But
well, yeah, because the suspension of disbelief with the Italian part, I'm like, all right, you've already proven this guy is exceptionally smart. And what did these people think? Whoever's going to ask them is this dumb that they can speak Italian? Like, come on. So I don't know. I didn't need all that. But that being said, pretty dang good movie.
Yeah. On a final note for me, anyway, though, too, I love that Christoph Waltz character is constantly insulting the German army in general without, like, he calls them a hawk in that first, like, they have to be some majestic, fearsome animal. But he basically says, yeah, but they think like the hawk, so they're kind of stupid. Like, they don't, you know what I mean? Like, they don't get it. And then there's like a moment in that whole scene in the, like, where it's like he lets himself say, I'm the smartest guy in the room. And I know what you're doing. I know what's happening. They're all too fucking stupid to figure it out. So I'm going to let them die to whatever plan you have. But I'm going to then milk my ability to have this play out to get my little piece of land in Ohio. and so it's just like, I love that aspect of it where he's always constantly like, even the scene when he meets Shoshana again and like he's eating the fucking, the dessert and he's stuffing his face and he's talking like he just like so confident and he's like basically saying everybody else around him is stupid. Like he's too excited. This guy's wants his film to be, he's got a crush on you. Like, let me make sure that I know what's happening. And so, I like that aspect of it where it's like, he's this standalone character almost that knows what's going on. And then it ends up getting him fucked in the end anyway.
JJ was in Ohio. No one wants to live there. It was the Nantucket Island.
Whatever.
Same difference there. Big difference.
Well, wasn't it something that he ends up in Ohio though? Like, wasn't the land that something had to do with Ohio? I swear.
I think you're
from
thinking.
Ohio, or
I think you're mixing your movies and you're mixing Patriot.
That could be true. I don't think so. I hate the Patriot. I hate that movie.
I think you're mixing it up because
love that movie.
Ohio. Maybe.
Maybe
it's
movie.
The general. They give him a bunch of land in Ohio or something. I don't know. The Ohio Valley. Whatever.
Oh, he does say that. I know the exact scene you're talking about. Tell me more about the Ohio.
Yeah.
That could be it. Anyway. Funny scenes.
Dick hating on the Patriot. Get out of here.
I hate that movie. Anyway. Talk about some historical inaccuracies. Anyway, we won't go there. Let's rate this thing. All right, Alec, you're first, buddy.
All right, my movie. This is tough. This is a tough one for me to rate. Because is parts that I would definitely change.
Mm.
And the kind of the biggest one is that it's titled Inglourious Basterds, but the bastards really aren't in it that much.
Yeah.
From a few scenes here or there, like they're not in it.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
And so it's and I think I would really enjoy it if there was more playing into Brad Pitt and Christoph Waltz being more antagonistic and kind of that the relationship from afar, right? Learning about each other before they actually meet in person.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think you could really have a better theater scene if they've heard of each other. You know, this is the Apache, Aldo the Apache meets the Jew hunter.
Yeah.
Right. And you could have a little bit more buy into that. Whereas now that scene is more played for laughs, right? We as the audience know that Christoph Waltz's character is this, extremely intelligent individual. The bastards don't have a clue. Right. And so he's messing with them to that entire scene. It's played for laughs for us. But they, to them, they're just meeting some, a National Socialist official, right? They don't have no care in the world. And so I think if you had played into a little bit more and cut out the I don't want to say stupid, but the Shoshana part, right? Because the only, in my opinion, the reason why that is there is to tie into the beginning.
Sure.
And I don't need that. I think if you play more with the bastards going up against, the Jew hunter from afar, almost like a chess match where it's move and counter move, then you have a better payout at the end to where they finally get to sit down and, it's more of like, hey, guess what? I beat you, right? So I'm setting the terms of how we're going to end the war. And then when the, switcheroo comes down, and for the first time in the entire movie, Christoph Waltz is no longer in control, then it becomes even a bigger kind of, gotcha or type of a thing. So, I mean, that's a very long way to say I'm going to give it a 3.5 and I will watch it again.
Fair enough. I'm going to give it a 4.5. And I think the only thing that drives me crazy is the bloat in the middle. Like, I think if we were to cut, and I'm with you, like Shoshana's storyline feels like just this thorough line that goes through the whole movie to keep it all tied together on some level. But I don't know that it's the most interesting storyline outside of the beginning. And then, like, I just think it's one of those things that help carry the movie through and connect the pieces. So I think it suffers a little bit from that. And then I think there's some too much dialogue in the middle that slows it down for me. But that's my only beef, is that I get to a point where I'm like, I could skip the next 20 minutes and just be okay. Because it doesn't house anything that really moves the story forward for me or makes it interesting. Like, what I want to see is the weird and the dialogue that makes sense versus the stuff that just felt like Tarantino goes, I think this would be clever right here, right? Like, and that's, or he's got a piece of dialogue that he wrote that he wants to play off of it. And so he's like, I'll stuff it in the middle of this movie and it'll just be to put them in a ridiculous scenario. And so it's like, it just felt unnecessary to do. And so anyway, but I love this movie. I think it's in my opinion, I think it's probably the second best Tarantino film to me outside of Pulp Fiction. But I just love it. But I think that also comes from Christoph Waltz and Brad Pitt. I think they absolutely carry this movie for sure. But 4.5 for me. I will definitely watch it again when I'm in a Tarantino mood.
I'll give it a 4. Great movie, great acting, interesting story. I've kind of said what would have taken it to a 5 is being a little bit shorter, as we talked about. I wanted a cooler Hitler scene. I think if it had that, I mean, I would have been on cloud 9. I think it would have been great. I'll definitely watch it again. It won't be for a while because it's an investment. But I love history, but I love the spin that they put on it and what almost could have been in a different way. It was a good watch because I'd never seen it all the way through. Happy to have done it. And Brad Pitt's character is my favorite.
Aldo Rain, Lieutenant Aldo Rain. It's great. I also love the intro to Stiglitz. Like, Had to have Sam Jackson in this motherfucker, so let's have him introduce Hugo Stiglitz. Anyway, all right, Alec, tell everybody where they can find us.
Happy to. Thank you for tuning into our review of Inglourious Basterds. This is week 3 of the month, and that means this month is nearly over with our original screenplays. What did you guys think about our verdict for Inglourious Basterds? Do you agree? Do you not? Please let us know in the comments below what you think. We're always curious to see what your guys' opinions are. Special thanks to our current patrons, Richard and CB, for selecting said movie from said topic. We appreciate you guys for your support in the podcast and for helping us figure out what movies to watch. It would take us far longer to do it on our own because Mattson and I won't agree on anything. Speaking of Patreon, that's the place to get involved. If you guys want more interaction with the podcast, as well as some behind the scenes content, I think we have upwards of 200, 300 videos on there that are extra content for you guys. So that's the best place to kind of get all your What's Our Verdict itches scratched at What's Our Verdict reviews on Patreon. So hope to see you guys there. And with that, I'll kick it back to the Titan of Terror, the Maharaja of MASH, a JJ.
Yes, sir. Thanks, my friend. Yeah. 1 week left in original screenplays, and then we get to go back to a bunch of regurgitated shit for a while. But with that, as always, we appreciate you tuning in. Go and hit all those buttons, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Bye.
Hasta la vista, baby.
Cinematic.
Whoa!